The new decade's begun, and boy, did it ever begin. I think we could all use some good entertainment to focus on right about now. Luckily, the start of any new year brings with it an avalanche of new anime for us to pick through, and even luckier for you, I'm here to do the picking. As I do every season, I sat down to watch every new anime that's come out this winter, good and bad, in an effort to narrow down the 10 I believe are most worth your time. These are the ones to watch for Winter 2020. Sponsored by Skillshare, an online learning community for us curious and creative types. Stick around to the end of the video to learn more about how you can, well, learn more with 2 free months of Skillshare Premium. With the world currently being totally fine, the need for wholesome moe goodness has perhaps never been higher. And it doesn't come much more wholesome, or good for that matter, than Asteroid in Love. In a lot of ways, Asteroid is your standard K-On! Style moe slice of life thing. You know the drill, cast of quirky teen girls doing impossibly adorable stuff together in some kind of niche after-school club. In this case, the Earth Science Club is an amalgam of Hoshizaki High's geology and astronomy clubs, neither of which was popular enough to keep existing on its own, and both of which must now share resources and try to find a way to get along. This show lifts something from K-On! That a lot of its slice-of-life contemporaries often forget. Story structure. While its cute girls spend a lot of time doing the cute things you'd expect, they're not just being cute for the sake of being cute. They have clear goals, the first being to secure more funding for their club by working on a project together, and most of the cute things they do are done in service of those goals. And our main heroine, the bubbly Mira Konohata, has even loftier ambitions than that. See, as a kid, Mira took an interest in astronomy after meeting a young stargazing boy named Ao and promising to discover an asteroid so that she could name it after him. She joins the Earth Science Club in pursuit of that promise, only to discover that her long-lost childhood sweetheart had done the same, and also that he was and is a girl, Ao Manaka, which doesn't seem to bother either of them much, actually. Well, at first they are both concerned that the other's changed too much and no longer likes them, and they struggle to communicate, but with the help of their clubmates, they quickly overcome those hurdles to become inseparable, gushing and blushing over each other when they're apart, reading each other's minds when they're together, and spending every night chatting on the phone as they stare up at the stars. This is soft yuri romance at its most pure and heartwarming, and it was pretty much exactly what I needed to see on January 5th for no reason in particular. These girls are just so sweet and good. Ao and Mira's chemistry makes a great foundation for the rest of the club members to build off of, and those clubmates by and large appear to be equally entertaining as characters. Though we haven't had much time to get to know them yet, their personalities absolutely shine through in the show's incredibly expressive animation. One of my Twitter followers, Otter Seaborn, described this show as Yorimoy but Yuri. Yurimoy, if you will. And given its strong character interactions and themes of dorky girls pursuing big crazy dreams together, I really can't think of a more apt term to describe it. If that sounds like a show that you'd like, I highly encourage you to check it out. Getting to share quality puns like that is one of the small joys of making these lists, as is sharing the season's hidden gems. And what luck! The case files of Jeweler Richard just gave me a rare chance to do both. This unconventional series follows a handsome and eccentric British jeweler named Richard Rananshina de Vulpian and his straight-laced Japanese assistant, Seigi Nakata, as they solve various mysteries related to the jewels that pass through Richard's shop, Étranger. They're an interesting pairing, these two. Richard is a little on the cold and cynical side, while Seigi is an incurable goody-two-shoes, always eager to help others when he can. That includes Richard himself, who Seigi saves from some drunk assholes in their first encounter. He's not naive, mind you. In fact, Seigi seems to have an equal knack for picking up on the good and the bad in people, and while Richard seems to be enamored with the young man's kind altruism, it's likely he intends to put that skill to work. Richard appears to be something of a savant when it comes to appraising and tracing the history of gems, but that history is also the history of the people who owned them, and that psychological aspect seems to be a major focal point for this series. Though I did also learn a lot about pink sapphires just from the first episode. The case files of Jeweler Richard is off to a bit of a slow start, admittedly, but it's shaping up to be a mature and nuanced character-driven drama, which is one of my favorite kinds of anime. And with the director of Sweetness and Lightning and the screenwriter of Ascendance of a Bookworm at the helm, it's undoubtedly in good hands. I've got high hopes for this series, personally, and if you like down-to-earth anime about niche topics with strong leading characters, it should definitely be on your radar. The shonen anime formula is one of those things that just works. You take a hero who wants to do something everyone tells him is impossible, have them say, "Fuck you, I'ma do it anyway," and then tell the story of how they overcame the odds to do just that. It's simple, inspiring, and applicable to just about any genre or topic you can think of. It's a bit of a shame, then, that so many shonen authors fall back on the same few: sports, toys, or games that, wow, what a coincidence, you can buy right now, and fantasy worlds that let teenagers be cops and soldiers for some reason. Now, many of my personal favorite shows of all time fall into those categories, but I like to see fresh takes, and few I've seen are fresher than Smile Down the Runway, a shonen anime about Chiyuki Fujito, a 5'2" teenage runway model with lofty dreams of representing her dad's agency at Paris Fashion Week. Smile Down the Runway is definitely a close cousin to Haikyuu and Ahiru no Sora, a show about a short kid trying to prove herself in a tall people contest. But the world of high fashion is even more exclusionary than that of high school sports, and thus the odds against our hero feel even more insurmountable. Luckily, Chiyuki has drive and self-confidence to match the loudest and spikiest of shonen heroes out there, and she won't take no, or even "it's literally impossible and you're only hurting yourself by trying," for an answer. The show's greatest strength, apart from its charming lead, is a wonderful supporting cast with vibrant personalities. I'm particularly fond of Ikuto, a soft-spoken aspiring fashion designer in Chiyuki's class, who's at risk of having to give up on his own dreams due to his family's financial woes. He's a great character who defies easy stereotyping and helps to ground a story that might otherwise just be about out-of-touch elites and their first-world problems. I don't want to spoil the first episode's narrative arc, but it manages to pack in plenty of surprises, emotional moments, and one hell of a hyped-up payoff. And while I can't speak to its accuracy, I sure feel like I learned a lot about fashion from it. It's very accessible, even for a guy who thought that this was a look. And whether or not you're interested in fashion, if you're looking for a show to get you hyped up this winter, on top of Haikyuu I mean, this is one of the most promising and original by far. Of course, originality isn't the be-all and end-all of art. There's something to be said for refined takes on old concepts, and while Infinite Dendrogram isn't about to light the world on fire with an inventive conceit, it's shaping up to be pretty much everything I've ever wanted from a straightforward fantasy adventure story set in a virtual MMORPG. I've taken an immediate shine to the show's hero, Ray Starling, a plucky, optimistic young man who gives his all to seizing even the slightest possibilities of success. He's friendly, intelligent, and upbeat, a far cry from mopey edgelords like you-know-who. His brother, Shu, is a beacon of positivity and terrible puns wrapped up in a cuddly yet intimidating bear costume, and has instantly become one of my favorite new supporting characters of the season. This show oozes charm, and it's well written to boot. The first episode manages to subvert a lot of genre cliches in clever ways that keep the plot moving at a good clip. Its story is simple, but still manages to deliver some clever twists, and it does a great job of balancing action against exposition, which is good news because the world of Infinite Dendrogram is impressively detailed and well thought out, and if the exposition were tedious, all of that might go to waste. This is one of the rare fake anime games that seems like it might be genuinely fun to play. Even its character creation menu is really neat and well thought out. A lot of thought has clearly gone into how the game's systems are designed, and there's a lot of subtle touches present to enhance player immersion. Infinite Dendrogram is a game about exploration and freedom, first and foremost, with an entire simulated planet populated by fully sentient AI NPCs called Tians, whose behavior and decisions generate quests and storylines dynamically. That's where the infinite part comes in. And while players can't die permanently, those NPCs can, meaning that player actions have real, lasting consequences. Obviously, the tech behind this game doesn't exist yet, and it won't for a long time, but if it did, this seems like it would be a really smart and fun way to design a game around it. Probably not a very balanced one, mind you. The embryo system, which grants each player a unique weapon or ability based on their personality, seems to be about as broken as SAO's unique skills, but with that said, the psychological aspect of these powers means they're kinda like stands. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't let a tiny thing like game balance get in the way of me playing a game where I basically get to have my own stand. On the subject of shows about heavily imbalanced VR MMOs, this season's delivered another promising one to us in the form of Bofuri. I don't want to get hurt, so I'll max out my defense. One of those light novel adaptations that conveniently explains its entire plot in the title, so I don't have to, but I'll try anyway. Bofuri follows a bubbly moe girl named Kaede Honjo, Maple, in-game, who starts playing the unfortunately acronymed New World Online at the behest of her friend Risa, username Sally. At the character creation screen, Maple does the thing in the title for the reason in the title, accidentally moeing her way into a totally broken min-max tank build. Though, as a trade-off, she can't use magic and she moves slower than the Frieza arc. The first episode is a little light on plot, and honestly I kinda hope it stays that way, because watching Maple adorably fumble her way through this game, overcoming serious threats with passive moe cuteness, is delightful, particularly the way that she deals with the show's first boss. Maple is already too OP to really need protection, but she's also too precious not to protect at all costs, something that the rest of the game's players recognize almost immediately. Bofuri's tone is playful and lighthearted, and its focus, such as it has one, seems to be on the sense of community that MMOs engender, which is something not a lot of these shows really tackle. Perhaps Bofuri has more to say than it's letting on initially, and its story will get more complicated as it goes. But if this show just ends up being cute girls doing SAO things with an MMO guild in place of the standard after-school club, I will be more than happy with that. And it'll probably sell like hotcakes too, because holy shit, how has no one thought of that until now? If you enjoy moe or lighthearted fantasy stories, I think Bofuri will be right up your alley. And if you're the figure collecting type, even if you don't see this show, I've got a sneaking suspicion you're going to be seeing a lot of it anyway. In case you couldn't tell, I'm a bit of a mark for the whole VR MMO concept, and that's not the only kind of trashy genre for which I have a soft spot. Death game anime are always a hoot, except when they're not, and Darwin's game brings the concept to dangerous new heights by turning its titular death game into a mobile app. So now, not only is your life on the line, but if you lose it all on gotchas in the game, you go broke in real life. Actually, Darwin's game pays you to play it. The points earned in-game can be cashed in literally at an exchange rate of 1 for 100,000 yen, but in-game rewards that can be purchased with those points are often literal lifesavers, so this is the rare case where the free-to-play currency is actually worth more than the premium alternative. With those rewards, it's not hard to see what would draw someone into this game, but our hero, Pseudo Kaname, doesn't start playing by choice. He's sucked into Darwin's game unwittingly when a dying friend sends him an invite out of desperation, and before he even knows he's playing, he's been bitten on the neck by a snake that came out of his phone, and he's got an invisible panda coming at him with a chef's knife. Yeah, this is one of the weird ones. Every player of Darwin's game gets a sigil that grants them some superpower or another, which can range from telekinesis to aura viewing to being able to turn invisible, but only when you're wearing a mascot costume. It's a power system that honestly wouldn't feel out of place in one of the zanier Shonen Jump worlds, and with such an incredibly wide range of potential abilities being used in a game with such high stakes, this has the potential to get pretty damn exciting. It already has, actually. The first 2 episodes alone have already showcased 3 clever, exciting fights and introduced some very entertaining players to the game. Shuka Karino, Pseudo's implicit love interest, is a particularly fun one, with a giddy, playful personality, a ruthless attitude toward the game, and a surprisingly cute side that makes for some fantastic gap moe. Also, she's basically Gothic Lolita Kratos, which is super fun. And fun is the primary word I'd use to describe Darwin's game. It's not doing much you haven't seen before, but like Infinite Dendrogram, it does the things you have seen really well. It's well directed, with a strong sense of atmosphere and style, and particularly effective lighting effects. Its action scenes are zippy and well choreographed, and it's got just the right amount of edge. If you like death game anime, Darwin's game knows just how to show you a good time. So does the next show on our list, in a very different way. Science Fell in Love, So I Decided to Prove It, or Rikakoi for short, is another one of those anime that puts the whole premise right there in the title. Ayame Himuro and Shinya Yukimura are a pair of brilliant university students who believe wholeheartedly in the power of numbers and reason to explain everything in the universe. So when Himuro presents her lab partner with an intriguing hypothesis, that it seems she's fallen in love with him, they have no choice but to investigate the matter rigorously and thoroughly, and prove it with science. Rikakoi is a story about how some of the smartest people can be really friggin' dumb sometimes, and how obsessing over tiny details can make us miss the obvious big picture that's staring us in the face. The show leaves the audience with zero room for doubt that Himuro and Yukimura are both head over heels for each other, with their more socially adjusted colleague Kaname constantly slapping her forehead over their mutual obliviousness. But while it is often frustrating to see characters who are so obviously into each other spinning their wheels, Rikikoi makes that fun, not unlike Kaguya-sama from last year. Because this isn't a question of will they, won't they definitely will. It's a question of how long it'll take them to either swallow their pride and stop getting in their own way, or scientifically prove that love is real. And honestly, it could go either way. A lot of the show's humor comes from the pair's refusal to accept simple, obvious, or intuitive answers to any question, and while it is quite silly to see them measuring heart rates to determine the efficacy of the legendary Kabedan, or trying to determine if ketchup hearts make scrambled eggs better, the funny thing is they do actually try to turn these experiments into proper experiments, and the show serves double duty as a surprisingly educational introduction to the basics of the scientific method. It conveys complicated concepts like null hypotheses, experimental controls, and statistical significance in a funny, accessible manner while telling an engaging, funny story with a quirky and likable cast of characters. If you like romance or science, Rikikoi presents both with loving humor and charm. Speaking of charm, just look at toilet-bound Hanako-kun. Ooh, so pretty. Masaomi Ando and Studio Lerche have refined the heck out of the motion manga animation style that facilitated Hakume and Mikochi's stunning watercolor aesthetic 2 years ago, and the result is one of the most drop-dead gorgeous anime you'll ever lay eyes on. It may not move with the fluidity of your Mob Psychos or your Demon Slayers, but Hanako-kun dazzles with bright watercolors, bold manga-style effects, and slick, creepy cute character designs. Of course, there's more to toilet-bound Hanako-kun than just a pretty face. It's also a solid spoopy comedy that puts a fresh spin on yokai lore, starting with its titular character, who's a gender-flipped version of the ghostly Hanako-san said to haunt girls' bathrooms throughout Japan. Though he is summoned in the same way as the urban legend that inspired him by knocking thrice on the third stall in a restroom, Hanako-kun's more benevolent when he appears, offering to grant wishes in exchange for something precious from the child who knocks, instead of dragging them to hell through the toilet. Nene Yashiro is a love-struck teenager looking to use one of those wishes to help her catch the eye of the handsome senpai she's crushing on, something Hanako-kun initially tries to help with through non-supernatural means, asking nothing in return because he's a genuinely nice guy like that. Immediately, the pair develop a wonderful comedic chemistry with one another that makes each strange supernatural gag and every increasingly ridiculous attempt to grab senpai's attention a delight. Hanako-kun is really funny, but it's also quite genuine and mature. Nene's initial storyline isn't about true love or anything schmaltzy like that. It becomes clear early on that she's more in love with the idea of love than with senpai himself, and the show explores how those kinds of shallow, one-sided crushes can be harmful to both the person holding them and the object of their impulsive affection. It's apparent from the get-go that these characters have some real depth to them, and the show's supernatural gags often work to highlight that depth, even as they're getting laughs. If you're a fan of offbeat school comedies, or you're just a fiend for yokai lore, looking at you, Gaijin Goomba, I think you'll find Hanako-kun is an easy show to love. Id Invaded, the latest original anime from recreators and Fate Zero director Aoki, is one of those shows that really benefits from going into it blind. The first episode kicks off with an intentionally disorienting cold open that asks you to figure out what's going on for yourself alongside the baffled protagonist, and if that sounds like an experience you think you'd enjoy, then I urge you to skip to this timestamp and watch the show without another word from me. But if you've already seen it and you want to hear my take, or you need a harder push, Id Invaded is basically Psycho-Pass meets Psychonauts, a surreal sci-fi detective thriller that sees its hero, Sakaido, diving into the murderous mindscapes of uncaught serial killers to divine their motives and find clues that might help bring them to justice. Each of these idwells seems to operate on different rules, almost like a video game, and each is uniquely arranged and designed to reflect the twisted reality of its creator. Cooler still, these worlds appear to be inspired, at least in part, by other anime. For instance, the first one sees Sakaido visiting a milkman conspiracy-esque jumble of a broken cityscape set floating in an endless white void that bears an uncanny resemblance to the virtual worlds of Mamoru Hosoda. And that whole concept is so specifically geared toward my personal taste that between this and Recreators, I'm beginning to wonder if Aoki hasn't been collecting my cognition particles to make his shows. I love it when anime uses crazy sci-fi tech or fantasy concepts to examine heady philosophical questions from crazy angles, and exploring the subjective nature of reality through the mental worlds of serial killers fits that to a T. I also love it when animation is used to realize physically impossible action, and the way that Sakaido platforms through the world of the Perforator's mind using his Rayman-esque floating arm bits is just amazing. Some of the most inventive, captivating Sakuga I've seen this decade, or last for that matter. From subtle touches, like the way he walks his disembodied hand along the floor and the way that what's left of his sleeve kind of just dangles from his floating wrist disc, to big cinematic action scenes, it all looks incredible. Well, actually, it looks very credible, which is exactly what's so impressive about it. Aoki has a real talent for making the absurd and abstract feel real and grounded. And considering he's working with Otaro Maijo, the author behind George Joestar, a truly bizarre light novel that makes the rest of the JoJo canon seem downright tame by comparison, I've got a feeling id Invaded is going to push that talent to its absolute limits. On that note, my final recommendation of the day is another show that's brought the absolute best out of one of the anime industry's greatest creative talents. Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken, the latest anime from master director Masaaki Yuasa and his studio Science Saru, tells the story of a trio of teenage girls who love anime so much they just have to make one of their own. Well, Midori Asakusa and Tsubame Mizusaki love anime, anyway. Sayaka Kanamori's one love is money, and she happens to smell it all over the pair of them. Mostly because Mizusaki is a wealthy heiress and famous model whose parents have forbid her from ever watching anime. Girl like that making her own show, now that's a story you can sell. Kanamori's always looking for an angle, but also the pair's creative ambition is so vibrant and the talent born from it so great that the story they're cooking up might just draw people in all on its own. The world Asakusa has been building in her head for years, a sprawling fantasy labyrinth inspired by the nonsensical twisting streets of their hometown. There's something real magical about it, especially now that Mizusaki's characters have started living in it. It's something our world needs to see, and these three won't let anything stop them from making it a reality. Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken is a love letter to animation itself, a celebration of the boundless depths of human imagination and the unique power that this medium has to make it real. And its first episode kicks off by capturing and celebrating the moment. The revelation that every young artist has that someone made the thing that is so captivating their imagination, and that they can maybe make it too. The turning point where dreams of adventure crystallize into dreams of creating adventures. A little girl sitting on the couch watching the work of a master, Hayao Miyazaki's future boy Conan, and realizing for the first time that if she works for it, she could really do that too. That one scene resonated with me like few other things in anime ever have. And a lot of those other things are also from that same episode, like Asakusa's over-passionate ranting about the intricacies of anime as an art form, a social faux pas I have some experience with, and, of course, the episode's climax, a moment where the girls get so caught up in their creative collaboration that the world around them falls away, and suddenly they are inside their sketchbooks. First building a fantastical dragonfly plane by hand, then rushing it out of the hangar to lead a squad of goons on a merry chase through the twisting and towering city. The animation throughout the rest of the episode is consistently phenomenal. Yuasa's team has always been good at the subtle character acting required to make a truly great contemporary comedy work, but this sequence blows all of it out of the water. From the subtle mechanical details of the Dragonflyer to the grand sweeping motions that make up the chase scene, it is a pitch-perfect tribute to the whimsical flight scenes that are Hayao Miyazaki's trademark. The gorgeous, sketchy animation is matched by clever sound design that sees rudimentary mouth sound effects gradually transforming into proper Foley work as the action scene becomes increasingly complicated and thrilling. This scene captures the thrill of the creative process, of a great idea crystallizing from a rough draft into something tangible, and conveys it in the universal language of animation itself. It is powerful stuff. And that's only episode 1. I love these characters. I love this world. I love the world based on this world. And I love this show. I'm only supposed to be recommending it here, and already I'm analyzing it because Yuasa's fire has lit a fire in me. If you want to make any kind of art, this show is absolutely mandatory viewing. But I'd recommend it no matter what your dreams are, because it's magical and captivating and uplifting to see these girls pursuing theirs, and I don't know about you, but I really need some of that right now. For no reason in particular. And if Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken happens to inspire you to take up animation for yourself, hey, that's what Skillshare's for. As I said at the top of the video, Skillshare is an online learning community where people in all sorts of creative fields, from writing and video editing to photography and animation, come to share, well, their skills in the form of short, detailed video tutorials designed to fit into your busy schedule and allow you to learn on your own time at your own pace. Skillshare has classes for every skill level, whether you're a beginner who wants to learn the basics of, say, drawing anime faces, or an accomplished animator looking to improve their effects work. I'd recommend checking out Emmanuel Colombo's The Art of Animation course, which provides a very efficient and detailed breakdown of the core principles of the medium. Even if you're not interested in doing animation yourself, I find that learning about these things helps me better appreciate the shows and movies I watch. You can gain access to those classes and hundreds more for the affordable price of just $10 a month, and you can get the first 2 of those months for free by going to skl.sh/basement5 or clicking the link in the doobly-doo. Check it out for yourself today and see how Skillshare can help you make 2020 a year of exploration, creativity, and growth. Now, I've given you my anime recommendations for the season, but this winter's packed almost end to end with solid shows, and there were plenty, like Somali and the Forest Spirit, Inspector, and Magia record Madoka Magica Side Story, that I had a lot of fun with, even if they didn't make the cut. So let me know in the comments below what your top 10 anime of the season are, and don't forget to check out my roast of the worst anime of 2019 if you haven't seen it already. I'm Geoff Thew, professional shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement.